You won't be coming back here tomorrow. The words hit me like a freight train. I stared at Jasper, the same man whose son I'd dragged from a burning cabin just hours ago. The same CEO I'd risked everything for. His eyes were cold as granite, like I'd committed some unforgivable sin instead of saving a child's life. Sir, I don't understand. My voice trembled despite my best efforts. I looked down at my hands, white bandages covering raw, blistered skin. The pain was still fresh, still screaming. Those flames, that suffocating smoke, Kylo's terrified screams, all of it replayed in my mind like a nightmare I couldn't escape. Jasper threw a brown envelope across his mahogany desk. It landed with a heavy thud. Your termination papers. Sign them and leave. I'd come down those mansion stairs exhausted and hurting, expecting maybe a thank you, maybe some concern for my injuries. Instead, I got this. Cold dismissal wrapped in corporate speak. Why? I forced steel into my voice even as my heart cracked. I saved Kylo's life. He's still in the hospital unconscious. And you're firing me? Exactly. His voice could have frozen water. You overstepped your boundaries. You're a tutor, Rylan, not a firefighter. Your reckless actions could expose me to legal complications. Insurance liabilities. Potential lawsuits. My chest tightened. Liability? I'd pulled his son from certain death, and this man was lecturing me about paperwork? Kylo will wake up asking for me. He's my son. Jasper spat my name like poison. I decide what he needs, and he doesn't need you. Not now. Not ever. I refused to sign. My hands shook as I pushed the envelope back across the desk. But Jasper wasn't interested in negotiation. 2 security guards appeared at the door as if on cue. They didn't touch me roughly. They didn't have to. Their presence alone made the message clear. Outside, rain poured down in sheets. My shirt soaked through within seconds, but I barely noticed. 3 years of dedication. 3 years of building trust with that little boy. Erased in a single conversation. The cold rain mixed with something warmer on my cheeks. And I realized I was crying. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from the hospital lit up the screen. Emergency. Kylo regained consciousness. Patient experiencing severe distress. Refusing all medical intervention. Repeatedly calling for Rylan. Immediate response required. My hands went numb. Kylo. My brave little warrior who'd survived that fire. I ran. The rain made the sidewalk treacherous. But I didn't slow down. My burned hands throbbed with each swing of my arms. My lungs burned from the cold air, but none of it mattered. Kylo needed me. That was the only truth that counted. By the time I reached the hospital, I was drenched and gasping. The fluorescent lights felt too bright, too harsh after the gray rain outside. People stared as I dripped water across the pristine floors. But I pushed forward toward the ICU. A nurse tried to stop me at the entrance. Sir, you can't just... Kylo is calling for me. I didn't stop moving. Check your charts. I'm Rylan. Recognition flashed across her face. She stepped aside. The ICU corridor buzzed with controlled chaos. Medical staff rushed between rooms. Monitors beeped their insistent rhythms. And somewhere in the middle of it all was the little boy who'd become my whole world. Through the glass partition, I could see his room. Even from here, I could tell something was very wrong. The usual calm of the ICU had been disrupted. His door stood open and I could hear him. No! Get away! I want Rylan. Where's Rylan? His voice was raw, broken. I'd never heard him sound so desperate. I moved faster, my wet shoes squeaking against the polished floor. When I reached his doorway, the scene inside stopped me cold. 2 nurses stood at a careful distance from his bed. Medical equipment lay scattered. A blood pressure cuff on the floor. Monitoring wires tangled where he'd ripped them free. And Kylo himself sat in the middle of his hospital bed, small and fragile in an oversized gown, tears streaming down his face as he clutched a pillow like a shield. Kylo. Just his name. That's all I said. His head snapped toward me. For one frozen moment, he just stared like he couldn't believe I was real. Then his face crumpled. Rylan. He launched himself off the bed before anyone could stop him. I caught him, ignoring the fire that shot through my injured hands. He wrapped his small arms around my neck so tight I could barely breathe. I'm here, buddy. I've got you. I held him carefully, aware of the IV still in his arm, the bandages on his legs. I'm right here. They said you left. His voice broke on every word. Papa told me you weren't coming back. I thought you died too. Like mommy. I thought, everyone leaves me. My throat closed. I blinked hard against the burning in my eyes. Look at me, Kylo. I pulled back just enough to see his face. I will never abandon you. Do you understand? Never. Promise? His tiny pinky finger extended toward me, trembling. Pinky promise. I linked my finger with his, sealing the vow. He buried his face against my shoulder and finally started to calm. His breathing evened out, though his grip on my shirt never loosened. The nurses visibly relaxed, one of them quietly reattaching his monitoring leads now that he'd stopped fighting. A knock at the door made us both tense. Jasper stood in the doorway. The man who'd fired me just hours ago now looked completely different. His perfectly styled hair was disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. His tie hung loose, top button undone, and his eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, now held something I'd never seen before, fear. Kylo, son. He took a tentative step forward. No! Kylo's scream was sharp enough to make everyone flinch. Stay back. You lied to me. You said Rylan left me. Jasper froze mid-step. All the color drained from his face. For a man who commanded boardrooms and negotiated million-dollar deals, he looked completely lost. I settled Kylo back onto the bed, staying close. The boy's hand remained locked around mine like a lifeline. Eventually exhaustion won. His eyes grew heavy and he drifted off, still clutching my hand. I carefully extracted myself and stepped into the hallway. Jasper stood with his back against the wall, one hand covering his face. I made a terrible mistake. His voice cracked on the last word. I had no words. Anger and exhaustion left me empty. Rylan, please. He looked at me then, really looked at me. I was wrong. I'll fix this. Just tell me how to fix this. Isn't it a bit late for that? I couldn't even look at him. You took away the one person who makes your son feel safe because of your pride and your paranoid legal concerns. I walked toward the exit, but his hand shot out, catching my wrist. Don't leave. Please. Not again. The desperation in his voice almost made me stop. Almost. I pulled free and walked away. That night my phone wouldn't stop ringing. 23 missed calls. All from Jasper. I didn't answer a single one. The next morning arrived with gray skies and my phone buzzing on the nightstand. Another call from Jasper. I silenced it and dragged myself out of bed. My hands ached where the burns were healing, each movement pulling at tender skin. By 10 a.m. I was back at the hospital. The receptionist smiled sympathetically when she saw me. Apparently word had spread about yesterday's scene, but along with her greeting came an unexpected delivery. A courier dropped this off for you an hour ago, she said, sliding a manila envelope across the desk. My name was written across it in elegant handwriting. Inside I found a new contract and a handwritten note on expensive letterhead. I can't undo what I did, but I can try to make it right. Please come back. Not for me, for Kylo. He needs you. My hands shook as I read through the contract. This wasn't just a reinstatement. It was something entirely different. The title read, Primary Caregiver and Educational Specialist. The salary had tripled. Medical benefits extended to cover my burn treatments completely. But the clause that made me stop breathing was near the end. Termination of employment only permissible with written consent of Kylo, when age appropriate or in cases of proven criminal misconduct. Employer cannot unilaterally terminate this contract. Jasper had just given me complete job security. He'd made it impossible to fire me on a whim ever again. I sat in the hospital cafeteria for 20 minutes, just staring at that contract. Part of me wanted to tear it up and throw it in his face. But the bigger part, the part that loved that little boy upstairs, knew what I had to do. I signed it. When I arrived at Jasper's mansion later that afternoon, everything looked the same, yet felt completely different. The same intimidating iron gates, the same sprawling lawn, the same massive oak door. But when that door opened, I barely recognized the man standing there. Jasper wore a simple gray sweater and jeans. No suit, no tie, no armor of corporate professionalism. He looked almost human, You came back. Relief flooded his voice. For Kylo. I clarified immediately. I know. He stepped aside to let me enter. The foyer felt bigger somehow, emptier despite all the expensive furniture and art. My footsteps echoed on the marble floor. He's in the living room, Jasper said quietly. He's been waiting by the window all morning. Sure enough, when I rounded the corner, Kylo sat curled up on the oversized couch, staring out at the driveway. The moment he heard my footsteps, his head whipped around. Rylan! He was off that couch and running before I could brace myself. I caught him anyway, lifting him up despite my protesting hands. Hey there, superstar. Miss me? So much. He pulled back to look at my face, his small hands on my cheeks. You really came back. Papa said you would, but I was scared you wouldn't. Over Kylo's shoulder, I caught Jasper watching us from the doorway. Something complicated crossed his face, gratitude mixed with pain. The first few days back fell into an easy rhythm. I spent my mornings helping Kylo catch up on schoolwork he'd missed. Afternoons were for physical therapy, working on the mobility he'd lost from his leg injuries. Evenings meant reading together, playing games, sometimes just talking about his fears and feelings. Jasper kept his distance. He left for the office early and came home late. When he was home, he stayed in his study with the door closed. But I noticed things, small things, like how he'd pause in the hallway when Kylo and I were laughing in the playroom. How he'd appear in the kitchen doorway during our dinner preparations, watching silently before disappearing again. How his coffee mug was always still warm in the morning, suggesting he'd been up watching us at breakfast before retreating. One evening, after I'd put Kylo to bed, I found a tray outside my bedroom door. A sandwich, fruit, and a bottle of water. A note card beside it read simply, "You forgot to eat dinner." I hadn't forgotten. I'd chosen to eat with Kylo in his room while he recovered. But somehow Jasper had noticed I'd missed the meal. The pattern continued. I'd find my favorite tea stocked in the kitchen, the thermostat adjusted to exactly the temperature I preferred. My mail organized neatly on the hall table. All these tiny considerations that appeared like magic. 2 weeks after I'd returned, Kylo had a nightmare. His screams woke me from a dead sleep. I rushed to his room and found him tangled in his sheets, crying about fire and smoke. I climbed into bed beside him, holding him close and humming the song his mother used to sing. When he finally settled back to sleep, I looked up to find Jasper standing in the doorway. He wore rumpled pajama pants and an old t-shirt. His hair stuck up at odd angles. He looked exhausted. Is he okay? Jasper whispered. He will be. These nightmares are normal after trauma. Jasper took a hesitant step into the room. Does he have them often? 3 or 4 times a week. I didn't know. His voice cracked slightly. I didn't realize. You're never here to notice, I said quietly, without accusation, just fact. He flinched like I'd hit him. I thought giving you both space was better. That I'd just get in the way. He needs his father, Jasper, not just a paycheck and a roof. Jasper's jaw worked like he was trying to find words. Finally he just nodded and left. But the next night, when Kylo had another nightmare, Jasper appeared faster than I did. He stood awkwardly at the bedside while I comforted Kylo. But he stayed, and the night after that, and the zone after that. Slowly, painfully slowly, Jasper started learning how to be present. How to read to his son without making it feel like a business presentation. How to play board games without trying to teach strategic thinking. How to just be a dad. 3 weeks in, I came downstairs one Saturday morning to find Jasper and Kylo in the kitchen together, attempting to make pancakes. Flour dusted every surface. Eggshells littered the counter, and both of them were laughing. Rylan, look. Kylo pointed proudly at a misshapen pancake. Papa made this one. It's supposed to be a dinosaur, Jasper added with a self-deprecating smile. I think it looks more like a blob. It's perfect, I said, and meant it. That afternoon, while Kylo napped, I retreated to the library to catch up on planning his lessons. I'd been there maybe 20 minutes when Jasper knocked softly on the doorframe. Can we talk? I marked my place and nodded. He sat in the chair across from me, hands clasped between his knees. I owe you an explanation. A real one. Not just an apology. You don't owe me anything, Jasper. Yes, I do. He met my eyes. That day when I fired you, I wasn't thinking about legal issues. That was an excuse. I waited. The truth is, watching you pull Kylo from that fire terrified me. Not because you might get hurt, though that scared me too, but because in that moment, I realized that you loved my son more than I did. That you were willing to die for him without hesitation, while I'd spent years hiding from him in my office. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I fired you because I couldn't face my own failure as a father. The raw honesty in his confession left me speechless. I'm trying to be better, he continued. Trying to learn, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness or your help. But, stop. I held up a hand. Kylo is getting better because you're trying. That's what matters. Something shifted in his expression. Gratitude, yes, but something deeper, something that made my pulse quicken in a way I absolutely could not afford. I stood quickly. I should check on Kylo. I left before he could respond, before I could examine that look too closely, before I could acknowledge what it meant. The shift in our household dynamic was subtle, but undeniable. Jasper no longer disappeared into his study every evening. Instead, he joined us for dinner, helped with bath time, and even started reading bedtime stories. Though his first attempts at silly voices made Kylo giggle so hard he nearly fell out of bed. But something else was changing too. Something I tried desperately to ignore. I'd catch Jasper watching me with an expression I couldn't quite name. When our hands accidentally brushed while clearing dishes, he'd freeze for just a moment too long. When I laughed at something Kylo said, Jasper's face would soften in a way that made my chest tight. One rainy Thursday afternoon, Kylo was at a therapy appointment with his counselor. One of the few times I wasn't required to be present. I used the opportunity to catch up on administrative work in the small office off the library. I was deep into reviewing educational progress reports when Jasper appeared with 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this, he said, setting one beside me. Thanks. I took a sip. Perfect. Just the right amount of cream. No sugar. Exactly how I liked it. How does he seem to you? Jasper asked, settling into the other chair. Honestly, I considered the question carefully. Better. The nightmares are less frequent. He's regaining confidence, but there's still fragility there. Abandonment issues that run deep. From his mother leaving. And from you firing me, I added gently. He thought everyone he loved would eventually walk away. Jasper's jaw tightened. I can't take that back. No. But you can prove him wrong going forward. We sat in companionable silence for a moment. Rain drummed against the windows, creating a cocoon of sound around us. Can I ask you something? Jasper's voice was careful. Why did you come back? The real reason. I looked down at my coffee. I told you. For Kylo. Just for Kylo? The question hung in the air between us, loaded with implications I wasn't ready to explore. Jasper. Because these past few weeks, he continued, watching you with him, seeing how you've helped rebuild not just his confidence, but our entire relationship, I keep wondering what I did to deserve a second chance from you. You don't deserve it, I said bluntly. But Kylo does. He absorbed that like a punch. Fair enough. I should have left it there. Should have finished my coffee and excused myself. Instead, I found myself asking, why do you really care what I think? Because your opinion of me matters more than it should. He met my eyes. More than anyone's has in years. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was dangerous territory. I'm Kylo's caregiver. That's all, is it? It has to be. Why? He leaned forward slightly. Why does it have to be limited to that? Because you're my employer. Because I work for you. Because you're afraid I'll hurt you again, he finished quietly. I couldn't deny it. That fear lived in my chest like a constant ache. I don't blame you for not trusting me, Jasper continued. I broke that trust spectacularly. But Rylan, I need you to know something. I waited, barely breathing. These weeks of watching you care for my son, seeing your patience and kindness, witnessing the way you put his needs above everything else, it's changed me. You've changed me. Jasper, please don't. I'm not asking for anything, he interrupted. I just need you to know that you've made me want to be better. Not just as a father but as a person. The vulnerability in his voice undid something in me. This powerful CEO, who commanded respect and fear in boardrooms across the country, sat before me completely unguarded, offering up pieces of himself I hadn't asked for. I see you trying, I admitted quietly. With Kylo. With yourself. But not with you. The observation hit too close to home. I stood needing distance. I should prepare for Kylo's return. Jasper stood too, but didn't try to stop me this time. Rylan? I paused at the doorway. Thank you, for giving me the chance to try. I nodded and escaped before my resolve could crumble further. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay in bed replaying our conversation, examining every word and inflection. Around 2 a.m., I gave up and decided to get water from the kitchen. The hallway was dark except for a thin line of light under Jasper's study door. I could hear him moving around inside. The soft click of keyboard keys. I should have just gotten my water and returned to bed. Instead, I found myself knocking softly on his door. Come in. Jasper sat at his desk surrounded by papers and his open laptop. He'd changed into sweatpants and an old college t-shirt. Reading glasses perched on his nose. I'd never seen him wear glasses before. Somehow they made him look younger, less intimidating. Can't sleep? He asked, pulling the glasses off. Too much coffee earlier. I stepped inside. You. Work deadline. He gestured at the chaos on his desk. Though honestly, I'm using it as an excuse. I don't sleep well these days. Since the fire? Since I fired you. He said it simply, without self-pity. Turns out guilt is an effective insomnia trigger. I moved closer looking at what he was working on. What's this? A new foundation I'm establishing. For children who've experienced trauma. House fires specifically. Providing them with counseling. Medical care, whatever they need. My throat tightened. Jasper, it's selfish, really. He continued, still looking at his screen. I'm trying to do something good because I did something so unforgivably bad. It's not selfish, it's growth. He looked up at me then, really looked at me. You always see the best in people. Even people who don't deserve it. Maybe I just believe people can change if they truly want to. Do you believe I can change? The question was vulnerable, almost desperate. I found myself stepping closer until only the desk separated us. I think you already have, I said honestly. The man who fired me wouldn't be sitting here at 2 a.m. creating a foundation to help traumatized children. He wouldn't learn to make terrible dinosaur pancakes just to see his son smile. A hint of a smile touched Jasper's lips. They really were terrible, weren't they? The worst. I smiled back. The moment stretched between us, charged with something unnamed. Jasper stood slowly, rounding the desk until we stood face to face with nothing between us. Rylan. A cry from down the hall shattered the moment. Kylo. We both moved instantly, racing to his room. Kylo thrashed in his sheets, caught in another nightmare. I reached him first, gathering him close. Shh. I've got you. You're safe. But this time, when Kylo's eyes opened, he reached for both of us. Papa? Rylan? Jasper sat on the other side of the bed, his hand gentle on Kylo's back. We're both here, son. Promise you'll both stay? Kylo's voice was small, frightened. Promise you won't leave? I promise, I said immediately. Kylo looked at his father. Papa? I promise, Jasper echoed, his voice thick with emotion. Always. We stayed like that until Kylo drifted back to sleep, bookended by the two people who loved him most. As I carefully stood to leave, Jasper caught my wrist, not grabbing, just a gentle touch. Stay, he whispered. Just until we're sure he's fully asleep. I nodded and settled back down. Across Kylo's sleeping form, Jasper's eyes met mine in the dim nightlight glow. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that nothing between us would ever be simple again. Kylo had almost fully recovered physically. The scars on his legs were healing. His energy had returned and he could run around the garden without losing his breath. But emotionally, he still carried shadows. The nightmares came less frequently now. But when they did, only my voice could bring him back from those dark places. One lazy Saturday afternoon, we sat cross-legged on his bedroom floor building an elaborate spaceship from Legos. Sunlight streamed through the windows and everything felt peaceful, normal even. That's when Kylo dropped his bombshell. Rylan, do you like my dad? I nearly dropped the piece I was holding. What do you mean? I mean, he carefully aligned two blue blocks, not meeting my eyes. You always act kind of cold around him, but he watches you all the time when you're not looking. And he's different now. Different how? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Before you came back, he was always angry. He stayed late at work every night. Sometimes I wouldn't see him for days. Kylo's small hands moved mechanically, building his spaceship. But now he comes home early. He sits outside my room at night when I have bad dreams, even though he doesn't come in. He wakes up early to have breakfast with us. And Kylo finally looked up at me with serious eyes that seemed too old for his face. He talks about you when he thinks nobody's listening. My heart started racing. Kylo, you probably misunderstood. I didn't. His stubborn streak emerged. Last Tuesday I got thirsty at night. When I went downstairs for water, I heard him in his study on the phone. He said your name. He told someone. I destroyed everything with Rylan. I have no idea how to make this right. I couldn't breathe. Jasper, the cold calculating CEO, who treated emotions like business transactions, had actually said that maybe it was about something else. I offered weakly. There's more. Kylo set down his Lego pieces completely now, giving me his full attention. Last week his assistant came over with papers. While they talked in the study, I went in to ask Papa something. I saw my therapy folder open on his desk. There was a note from my therapist that said Kylo feels safest with Rylan. Papa had underlined it 3 times. In red pen. My hands had stopped working entirely. I set down my Lego pieces before I crushed them. Rylan. Kylo reached over and took my hand. Such a small hand, but his grip was surprisingly strong. I know Papa hurt you really bad. I know he was mean and scary when he fired you, but I think he's really sorry. And I think, he paused, gathering courage. I think he cares about you the same way you care about him, even if neither of you says it. Kylo, grown-up feelings are complicated. I'm 7, not stupid. He squeezed my hand tighter. I see how you look at him when you think he's not watching. I see how he smiles when you laugh at my jokes. I see how you both act weird around each other. Like you want to be close but you're scared. The observation from this 7-year-old was so accurate it hurt. I want us to be a real family. Kylo continued, his voice getting smaller. Not just you taking care of me because it's your job. Or Papa being here because he has to be. I want what I drew in my picture, all 3 of us together. Happy. Is that bad? My throat closed up. No, buddy. That's not bad at all. Then will you try? Please? For me? How could I refuse that request? I pulled him into a hug. Okay, champ. I'll try. That evening when Jasper came home from work, I made a conscious effort. As he walked through the door loosening his tie, I called out from the kitchen. How was your day? He stopped mid-step, briefcase still in hand, and just stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. For a moment I thought he might not respond at all. It was productive. Busy. His voice carried notes of surprise and something that sounded like hope. How was yours? Good. Kylo aced his spelling test today. He got every word right. Jasper's entire face transformed. His usual stern expression melted into something soft and proud. Really? That's incredible. He's been struggling with spelling. Not anymore. He's been practicing really hard. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment, neither quite sure how to navigate this new territory of actual conversation. But it wasn't terrible. Actually, it was kind of nice. Later that night, after Kylo had gone to bed, I found myself drawn to the terrace. I needed air, needed space to think about everything Kylo had said. The city sprawled below, millions of lights twinkling like earthbound stars. Didn't expect to find you here. I turned to see Jasper stepping out onto the terrace. He kept a respectful distance, leaning against the opposite railing. Neither did I admitted. We stood in silence, the night air cool against our skin. Traffic hummed far below, a distant white noise that somehow made the silence between us less oppressive. You spoke to me today, Jasper said quietly. Actually spoke to me, not just gave necessary updates about Kylo. Kylo asked me to try. I decided honesty was easier than pretense. He wants us to act like a family. Jasper's jaw tightened. And you? I'll try. For him. Only for him? The question hung heavy in the air. I couldn't look at him because if I did, I might say something I couldn't take back. Might admit that Kylo wasn't the only reason I was still here, still trying. Only for him. I lied. I heard rather than saw Jasper's reaction, a sharp intake of breath, the soft sound of his fist clenching against the metal railing. When I finally glanced over, his profile was tight with controlled emotion, like he was physically restraining himself from speaking. I should get some sleep, I said, pushing off the railing. Rylan. I paused but didn't turn around. Thank you for today, for trying. I nodded and went inside, leaving him alone with the city lights and his thoughts. In my room, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the entire day. Kylo's observations, Jasper's tentative hope, my own confused feelings. It all swirled together into an impossible tangle. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text message lit up the screen. Thank you for giving me a chance. I won't waste it. I stared at those words for a long time. My finger hovered over the delete button, but I couldn't press it. Instead, I just set the phone down and rolled over. But I didn't delete the message, and I didn't sleep for a very long time. The following week brought subtle but undeniable changes. Jasper transformed his entire schedule. He started leaving work at reasonable hours instead of staying until midnight. He joined us for meals without being asked. Most surprisingly, he began initiating conversations with me, careful, respectful attempts at connection that never felt forced or demanding. On Wednesday afternoon, he called me to his study. My stomach knotted with old anxiety as I climbed the stairs, even though I knew logically that everything had changed between us. Please sit down. The request, not a command. I settled into the leather chair across from his desk. What's going on? Jasper pulled out a manila folder and slid it across the polished wood surface. These are your medical records from the burn treatment center. According to your doctor, you've missed your last 3 physical therapy appointments. There to explain. Heat crept up my neck. I've been busy with Kylo's schedule. It's hard to find time. Don't lie to me, Rylan. His voice was firm but not angry. Concerned. You sacrificed your hands saving my son, and now you're not taking care of them properly. Why? I looked away, unable to meet his penetrating gaze. The truth was embarrassing. The truth was that physical therapy was expensive, and while my new salary was generous, the first paycheck hadn't arrived yet. My savings had been depleted by medical bills from the initial treatment. Is it money? Jasper asked, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. My silence answered for me. He pulled out his phone and typed something. Seconds later, my own phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out to see a bank notification. My eyes widened at the amount, more than enough to cover all my therapy sessions and then some. That's too much. It's separate from your salary. Jasper leaned forward, elbows on his desk. Rylan, you nearly died pulling Kylo from that fire. You suffered severe burns that will affect you for the rest of your life. I can never repay that debt, but I can at least make sure you receive proper medical care. Unexpected tears pricked at my eyes. I blinked rapidly, turning my head away so he wouldn't see. Hey! The sound of his chair scraping back, footsteps approaching. Then Jasper was kneeling beside my chair. Eye level with me. Please don't cry. I'm not crying, I said, even as I wiped at my eyes. Rylan. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted. When I didn't move, he gently took my injured hand, the one still bearing pink scars and tight new skin. He lifted it carefully and pressed his lips against the damaged flesh in the softest kiss imaginable. I'm sorry for everything, for what I did to you, for not appreciating your sacrifice, for being such a coward when you needed me to be brave. The tenderness of the gesture broke something inside me. I stood abruptly, needing distance, but Jasper stood too. I need to go, I managed to say. Wait, not a command. A plea. I froze halfway to the door. Can I ask you something? His voice was rough with emotion. Yes. Do you hate me? I turned to face him fully then. His expression was completely open, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. Raw fear lived in his eyes. Genuine terror that I might confirm his worst belief about himself. No. I said truthfully, I don't hate you, Jasper. I'm just confused. Confused about what? About whether this version of you is real. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. You're not the same person who fired me. You're softer, kinder, more present. And I don't know if this is permanent or if one day you'll wake up and go back to being that cold man who valued legal protection over human connection. Jasper moved closer, eating up the distance between us until only inches separated us. Then test me. What? Test whether I'm real. Watch me. Question me. Push me. I'll prove it to you every single day if that's what it takes. His breath ghosted across my face. Because I need you to know something, Rylan. Something I can't keep inside anymore. My heart hammered against my ribs. Jasper, I'm falling in love with you. The confession came out raw and desperate. I know I have no right. I know I hurt you terribly. I know you probably think this is just guilt or gratitude. But it's not. When you laugh at something Kylo says, my whole world gets brighter. When you're sad or hurt, I feel it like a physical pain. When you smile at me, actually smile. Not just polite acknowledgement. I feel like I can breathe properly for the first time in years. I couldn't speak. Every word I knew seemed to have evaporated from my vocabulary. You don't have to say anything, Jasper continued quickly. You don't have to feel the same way. I just needed you to know. I needed to be honest about what's happening inside me. I need time, I finally managed to whisper. Take all the time you need. He stepped back, giving me space. I'm not going anywhere. I left his study on shaky legs. My mind spinning with everything he'd said. His confession echoed in my head, mixing with my own confused feelings until I couldn't separate what I felt from what I thought I should feel. Because the terrifying truth was that I did feel something. Something that had been growing slowly since I'd returned to this house. Something that bloomed every time Jasper looked at Kylo with genuine paternal affection. Something that warmed my chest when I caught him watching me with soft eyes. I was falling too, and that scared me more than anything else in my life ever had. Kylo's 7th birthday approached like a gentle sunrise, inevitable and beautiful. He planned the entire celebration himself with very specific requirements. No clowns, he declared seriously over breakfast one morning. No magicians, no bounce house, just us three, my real family. The word family landed like a stone in still water, ripples of emotion spreading through both Jasper and me. We exchanged a glance across the table, brief but loaded with meaning. Birthday morning arrived bright and clear. Jasper and I worked together decorating the living room while Kylo still slept. We hung streamers, inflated balloons, and arranged his favorite superhero decorations. Working side by side felt natural now, easy in a way it never had before. You're good at this, Jasper commented as I secured a banner to the wall. At decorations? At caring? For Kylo? He trailed off, but his meaning was clear. I looked down at him from my position on the ladder. He held the ladder steady, looking up at me with an expression that made my breath catch. Jasper, not now. I know. He released the ladder and moved closer. But I have to say this. In my entire life, I've never felt what I feel when you're around. You didn't just change Kylo. You changed me, fundamentally. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose this either, I whispered, finally admitting the truth that had been growing inside me. His eyes widened. You mean? I feel it too, Jasper. I've tried to deny it, tried to tell myself it was just gratitude or relief that things were better. But it's not. You've gotten under my skin. And my heart. Jasper cupped my face in his hands, his touch reverent. Then why do you keep pulling away? Because I'm terrified, I admitted. Terrified this is temporary. Terrified you'll wake up one day and regret all of this. Terrified of losing not just you but Kylo too if this falls apart. I will never be that man again. His forehead pressed against mine, his voice fierce with conviction. You showed me how to live instead of just existing. You taught me that control isn't strength. Connection is. And I love you for it. I love you, Ryland. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. Jasper, you can reject me. I'll understand. But I couldn't keep this inside anymore. I wiped my eyes and made my decision. The scary one. The right one. I love you too. His breath stopped completely. Truly? Yes. And I'm done being afraid. He pulled me into an embrace that felt like coming home, tight, desperate, absolutely real. All my doubts dissolved in that moment, replaced by certainty that whatever came next, we'd face it together. Surprise. We broke apart to find Kylo standing in the doorway, grinning from ear to ear. I knew it. I knew you two loved each other. He ran over and wrapped his arms around both our legs. This is the best birthday present ever. The party that followed was simple but perfect. We made Kylo's favorite foods together, Jasper and I working in easy tandem while Kylo supervised and helped by sampling everything. We played board games, watched his favorite movies, and when it came time for cake, Kylo made a wish that he immediately shared. I wished that we'd always be together, all three of us. That evening, after Kylo finally crashed from his sugar high and excitement, Jasper and I retreated to the terrace. The night was clear, stars visible despite the city lights below. "Thank you," Jasper said softly. "For what?" "For giving me another chance. For helping me become the father Kylo deserves. For teaching me how to love again." I laced my fingers through his. "This is just the beginning. Then let's make it extraordinary." In the weeks that followed, everything shifted into place. Jasper introduced me at his company events. Not as Kylo's caregiver but as someone incredibly important to my family. People asked questions, made assumptions, but Jasper shut down any negativity with quiet firmness. "Rylan is staying, that's not negotiable." Kylo thrived in our newly defined family structure. His therapist reported remarkable progress. One session note particularly moved us. Kylo stated, "I have two dads now. Not officially yet, but in my heart." He shows no signs of confusion, only security and happiness. When Jasper read that report, he broke down crying. I held him while he processed years of guilt and regret, letting it all flow out until only peace remained. "I don't deserve this happiness," he said against my shoulder. "It's not about deserving, it's about choosing to be better every day. And you do that, Jasper, every single day." A month after his birthday, Kylo created a new drawing. This one showed three figures standing close together, hands linked. Above their heads, he'd drawn a sun with a smiling face. Below, in his careful printing, "My forever family." He presented it to us solemnly at dinner. "This is us. No matter what happens, we're always going to be together." Right? Jasper and I both answered simultaneously, "Always." That night after Kylo was asleep, we sat together on the terrace under the stars. Jasper held my scarred hand gently, tracing the healed burns with tender fingers. "These marks tell a story," he said quietly, "about courage and sacrifice and love." "They tell our story," I agreed. "The beginning of it anyway." He looked at me, eyes reflecting starlight. "I intend to spend the rest of my life making sure the rest of the story is just as beautiful." I leaned into him, feeling completely safe for the first time in years. "Then we better make it good." "We will. Together." And as the city breathed its nightly rhythms below us, three hearts beat in synchrony inside that house. A family not bound by blood but by something stronger: choice, commitment, and love that refused to be denied. This wasn't the end of our story. It was only the beginning.